I mean, in actuality, accidents usually come from a multitude of those things that are stacked up. It was the minimum
Yes.
fuel with the really bad weather and the low time co-pilot who, read the wrong checklist or whatever. Hello, aviators. Welcome back to the Profile Playbook podcast, where we bring you the tips, tricks, hacks, and shortcuts to get you into a cockpit faster and cheaper. I'm your co-host, Sean.
And I'm Mike.
And we got another listener/viewer question for you this week.
Yes.
Not a video question. We're harping on the video questions.
Yeah. This is a great question. It's from Bartow. We saw this come in, and I thought this would be a great episode. So the subject of the question is canceling flights. So it says, I think a great idea for a podcast would be telling passengers, clients that we are not flying because of, and he says, an XYZ problem. How do you deal with that? Weather, sickness, not enough pilot sleep, and known issues with the airplane, etc. How do you deal with that? And this really did catch my eye, this question, because it is an aspect of the business, particularly in corporate flying, that can be problematic. The people that you're flying spend a ton of money. A lot of times they're very powerful in their professional lives. They also could be famous. And some things happen. Even you can have all the money in the world and the fame in the world, but if the weather doesn't cooperate or there's mechanical issues or something, sometimes things don't go right. They go right a lot more than they do for people that just buy tickets on, a discount airline to go somewhere. They go, but still things go wrong for private jet passengers. And you, as a captain, one of your tough situations is you're the face of the company, and you have to, tell them about the problem. This happens. I mean, you do this for a career, and it happens quite a bit. So, yeah, this is an interesting topic.
Yeah, Mike, that is such an important point of, what we do in our world. We're not only the pilots, but we're also the maids after the passengers get off, cleaning up the cabin. We're the dispatchers doing all the flight plans and calling the FBOs and arranging things and whatever. At the airlines, when I was at the airlines, if there was a problem with a passenger or a problem maintenance-wise or whatever, there's a whole team of people to deal with customer service stuff. I mean, if you were really like somebody didn't want anything to do with it, you could probably just hide in the cockpit and close the door and let the team deal with everything. But in our world, not the case. And these people that we fly, they're not used to being told no. Very
No. I got a really good friend that manages a large flight department with lots of pilots, and he says, I tell my guys, when the owner asks you to do something, he goes, you start at yes and work backwards from there. And that's good advice. But also, every pilot knows there's a time. And another saying in the business that I've heard is, we get paid a lot of money to say yes, but sometimes we get paid a lot of money to say no too, because it's us. It's us. What do you say, Sean? The ability to decipher what's important.
Oh, yeah.
It's
what's important
it's
from
up
what's
to
not
us.
important. Yeah.
Yes. And we have to know when it's an appropriate time to pull the plug on the operation, and sometimes It's easy. I mean, if you have a mechanical issue and one of your engines won't start, well, throw a starter. That's easy. It doesn't make it easier to deliver the bad news, but It makes it easier to make the decision versus it's a judgment call. You might be flying to an airport, that's the weather's good now, but it's forecast to be really bad. And then you have to look at all aspects of that, and whether is it easier to tell them now, rather than start off on this mission and get wrapped up in maybe a dangerous situation, or ultimately land somewhere where they don't want to be. So you're constantly evaluating those things.
Absolutely. Yeah, I kind of go about it. we were talking about this, how we're going to handle this question a little bit before we hit record. And I kind of had a 3-step thing that I use when something happens, maintenance, or there's a delay of any kind. I kind of run through in my head. The first thing I do, my step one is I separate the passengers from the problem. If I got an airplane that's busted, there's no sense in them sitting on that airplane while you see the pilots running around, scratching their head, flipping switches, tinkering with that, going through manuals.
Pulling circuit breakers.
Yeah. Separate the passengers from the problem. So I will bring them into the FBO and get them away from everything and try to. Step 2 is comfort them. I'll get them drinks, snacks. We'll unload the airplane with whatever we got they want, their luggage, their stuff. I'll get them set up. If there's a private conference room or something, we can stick them in while we figure this out. Even better. And then the third thing I do is I always involve more people with the problem. I'm calling.
That's great advice.
I'm calling other company people. I'm calling mechanics I know. I'm calling if it's whatever, one of the gurus at Textron. If I know it's something they might be able to figure out quickly. If it's a hardcore busted airplane, I'm calling the other resources in the company, trying to get another airplane out to pick them up, or if it's just weather or something like that, I'm working every angle I can to get them to an airport closer to where they were going. And then maybe I can change my destination and route, that kind of thing. But that's kind of the way I work it. Mike, you had said something that I liked.
Yeah. I think my best advice to somebody in this situation when you're dealing with this is I never submit a problem. I never submit a problem to the passengers without a solution. Now, the solution might not be great. The solution might be, we can't go tonight, but we can go tomorrow. That's not good. But it could also be, hey, we have another airplane that's coming from XYZ. It can be here in 2 hours to pick you up. Worst case scenario, if we don't get this aircraft fixed, this airplane will be here as a recovery flight. It'll take you to your destination. I'm sorry about your inconvenience. At least you don't just say, you don't just walk into the lobby and say, yeah, we don't really know what's wrong with the plane. We don't really know what parts it needs. We are working on maybe somebody coming to get you. If it's fixed at some hypothetical time, we might be able to take you, but we might be able to get somebody to come and get you, but we don't really know anything. That just upsets them. You know what I mean? And you laugh, Sean, but people do that. They're like, I just want them to know everything. Well, yeah, but people don't process things, that well. But a lot of things we run into are weather. Not as much so in jets, smaller planes, your threshold might be different, but you can get into some crazy winds or crazy winter weather, icing conditions, really bad turbulence. Sometimes, Sean, sometimes the turbulence might be okay for the pilots, but the passengers, you got to tell them, like, look, this is going to be really rough,
Right. Yeah. There's been some days where I know I've had some of those passengers that I know they don't like the bumps, and I've had to tell them, look, this is going to be a really rough ride. Like,
one of the things we do
I've
too
heard
is
you comment on days where I didn't even notice that it was bumpy. This is going to be a day where I'm tightening my seatbelt. So I'm giving you the choice.
Yeah. One of the things too, we're constantly evaluating the weather for a trip leading up to it, so you can get ahead of these problems. For instance, if the weather's going to be really bad and you have an 8 a.m. departure, and the night before it's not looking great, and not that you don't want to do it, but you don't want them to be inconvenienced, you may call them, and say, hey, are you interested in leaving tonight? Or can we change the time 2 hours? Can we go at 6 a.m. instead of 8 a.m.? That might work better. And when you stay ahead of them, it makes the situation more manageable because they're making the decision. No, I really got to go. I can't go earlier because of this reason. Let's just try to make it work. And everybody has expectations. Now, a lot of maintenance issues. We do a lot of checks on the airplane. Obviously, mechanics check it, but we show up typically an hour to an hour and a half early and power up the airplane. So a lot of times you can uncover a maintenance problem before the passengers even arrive to the airport, and that's good to give them a call immediately. Let them know to take their time coming to the airport, that there is a problem and that you are working on it. Because when they get there, and they want to go, it's a lot more stressful. I mean, that's a good tip. And then also, some things are inevitable right when you fire up the engines. I mean, I've had planes full of passengers, and you get a light or something right when you start the airplane, and you got to unload everybody, and that can be really disappointing, But you got to say it's all in the name of safety, and most people are understanding, that things happen. But like Sean said, you just got to manage it the best you can,
Yeah, there's as you were talking, I was thinking about, I was just out there. I think I already mentioned this in one of the shows, though, but it just somewhat recently happened, at least in my mind anyway, that Formula One race. And we were out at Vegas, and there were so many airplanes. It was just, the system was clogged up, and the edict times were edict is the delay time that they'll issue you when you try to get your clearance. And usually they're a couple hours or something, and they'll issue your clearance anyway. But they weren't even given clearances. They were just denying you a clearance. You're not even close to being on the list of getting an edict. It was something I've never seen before. It was crazy. Then you finally get a clearance, and then your edict time was like for 6 hours later. These folks that come to in Formula One, people don't understand how big this Formula One thing is. I mean, it makes the Super Bowl is big, but that's just the United States. Formula One is worldwide. It's way bigger than a Super Bowl. So people from all over the world have flown to Vegas, and all these wealthy folks are in that FBO just losing their damn minds. I mean, the tension and the hatred and
there's probably no hotel rooms or anything.
Oh God! I mean, you could
Everything's
just
sold out.
cut it with a knife. Just the energy in the room of the frustration, and then you had people, taxiing out that have been waiting there, engines running on the taxiway, a line as far as you can see, and then they're like 3 from taking off, and you'll hear NetJets call, "Tower, this is FlexJet 313. We're gonna have to return to the ramp." And Tower's like, "What? Why would you do it? What's going on?" "We're pumpkins. We just timed out. We thought we were going to make it, but we're out of time."
Right.
They're out of duty time.
Or they
now.
burn too much fuel on the ground.
Yeah. So, and they got to go back and get more gas. So, I mean, just crazy day.
Yeah.
And there's no good thing to tell a passenger in that situation. I'll just be honest with you. You're just as frustrated as they are, and it's difficult. It's difficult.
Right. And one of the other ways now, when you're flying charter and they just assign you the trip, there's not much you can do. But when you're flying for a company, with experience, they're like, I really don't like hotels, so I want to fly to Game 7 of the World Series. It's a 5:00 game, and then I'll just leave right after that. That way I don't have to stay, and then I'll be home by 10. Well, that may not work that way. You could tell them with, experience, head them off like, we can do that, but there's going to be a lot of people trying to do what you're going to do. And if there's any weather or anything, you might not get home till 3:00 in the morning. So maybe it's better to just get a hotel room, but at least you've warned them, because it's not a magic carpet, and sometimes things happen. Some of the I'm just thinking back on my career, some of the extremely awkward situations I've had that weren't maintenance related, but and weather related is also when you're flying charter, there's no TSA, right? So you're in charge of screening the passengers. And a huge part of that is you have to check their driver's license and make sure it's, it's current and it's really them all that stuff.
We even took classes. Remember the classes we took, Mike, to actually look at somebody's ID and see the face in the picture is, measuring the distance of the eyes to the nose, and then whatever the distance of the eyes. There was this whole procedure for making sure you're looking at the right human in the picture.
Totally right. And, we'd have instances, all kinds of stories that I won't share online, but very wealthy people, sometimes extremely famous people that I've actually witnessed and been involved with where, they don't have their ID. And it's them because you see them on TV all the time. But you're not allowed. I mean, you're not allowed to fly. And if you got on the other side of the flight and somebody ramp checked you and they didn't have their driver's license, well, then they know you didn't check it, and you're in really big trouble. So people get really upset because they've left their ID at home. A lot of times they have to drive back to their house to get it, or wherever they were at. It's just a big safety thing. But yeah, I've heard some crazy stories of high profile people being left behind. Sometimes it'd be with a group of people. You're with 7 guys or something, and one of the guys doesn't have their ID, and he just doesn't end up going on the trip because he doesn't have it with him. But yeah, things can get really, really hairy real quick, but you get better at it. You get to, this is a good question. There's a lot of things here with Get Home-Itis. If you can kind of explain what that is, Sean, that's another thing you got to be careful with.
Yeah. Well, the Get Home-Itis, that's in our career field, that's where a pilot starts putting his own priorities ahead of safety. And it's easy to do. Well, sometimes it's not even his priorities. Sometimes it's the company's priorities. And, we can, even though what we do kind of, it really is, I mean, flying an aluminum tube at hundreds of miles an hour through the air across the country with thousands of pounds of jet fuel, slapped in the wing, I guess it is dangerous, but we do it every day. So it becomes like a normal thing that's not that big of a deal. And you've done something 1,000 times, you're going to be able to do it on that 1,001th time. And, well, there's been a lot of people that have hurt themselves and other people with the idea of trying to do something they shouldn't have been doing, or just trying to get home. We can make it. It's not that big of a deal. This weather isn't that bad. I've gone in there before in this kind of conditions or whatever. That's going to be enough gas. That's why we got the reserve fuel. All these little things are, what leads to accidents. And usually the accidents, in actuality, accidents usually come from a multitude of those things that are stacked up. It was the minimum fuel with the really bad weather and the low time co-pilot who, read the wrong checklist or whatever, that type of thing. It's usually a whole bunch of stuff building up when you watch those accident investigation things. But Get Home-Itis.
I've actually seen, Sean, I don't know if you've seen this, Sean, but I've actually seen the reverse of Get Home-Itis. I've seen, guys that maybe you're in Palm Beach and it's February. No, it's February and you're going to Minneapolis, and I've seen them over exaggerate the weather because they don't want to go because they just want to stay in Palm Beach. And that's another reason why it's always good to have 2 pilots, because it's a check and a balance, because you got another professional kind of looking at it. He's got to go along with what you're saying. You're like, dude, really? This doesn't look too bad to me. Maybe you just, really like the oceanfront hotel you were at last night.
Yeah. I've never experienced that firsthand with one of the guys I'm flying with, but my whole career, I've heard stories about the disgruntled guy. The company did this and did that, whatever. I guess this airplane's just broken then, whatever. Breaking airplanes, saying an airplane's broken for no reason, to screw something up for the company. It just, I don't know. I've heard those kind of stories for a lot over the years. And
there's that Robert De Niro movie Casino from the 90s when he's flying those guys out of Vegas and they're high rollers, and then they pay him off to break something on the plane so they have to stay another night to lose a bunch more money. Hey, things happen.
Where are those trips at for me? It'd be awesome. I guess the mob isn't running Vegas anymore, so I guess that may not be happening.
I hear you. But what a great question. We love the questions. And that was kind of a unique question that we don't get a lot. So we really appreciate it. And good luck to everybody on their flying. We really appreciate you guys tuning in. Please pound the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It helps us bring this content to you guys weekly, helps keep us motivated. check out our website for some of our new products. We've got some live coaching that people really enjoy and checking out. So look at some of that stuff. But until we meet again, we'll see.
If you got a question you'd like us to answer on air, you can email us at podcast@propilotplaybook.com. And we prefer the video questions. I think they just work so much better for this format. You can actually hear the person asking and see, if you're on YouTube, the person asking the question. It's just way more, inclusive, I guess you could use the word.
Yep.
But thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week.
See you next week.